Hi, dear listeners, and welcome back to Blush and Bloom, the podcast where we talk about women's health, self care, and everything in between. I'm your host, Gigi, founder of Asale, your space for cycle aware and preventive care. I'm really glad you're here with me on this journey to unpack women's health and highlight the incredible things being built in this space. So let's get into today's episode. Okay, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Dr. Michelle. So, for somebody who is meeting for the first time, how would you introduce yourself?
So, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be a part of your series and a part of this podcast. So, for me, I think all these years down the line, I think I would call myself a champion for women's health more than what a job definition I would call myself. Right after I studied medicine, I joined the digital health space for women. I've been in this for almost 10 years in different capacities. So, I think that title fits me the best because in every space that I go, I'm usually the voice for women talking about their health and what they want. Because I feel that sometimes we fail to neglect what a woman can want and build only on what we think they need. So I think within the digital health space, after working for 10 years, I think my favorite thing still is talking to women every day. And that's my favorite job to do. And I look forward to doing that more because we still need to build for them and we don't know exactly what they need. So to be able to be that bridge on both the side, the medical side and what you say, the innovative side, and to be able to be the voice for them, I think that's how I would define myself, the voice for women within this space.
That's really exciting. You've been doing this for such a good amount of time. So, how would you describe like what you're doing right now specifically, and maybe seeing how like everything your all your experiences from medical school to deciding to advocate for women's health specifically, like how did everything come together?
By chance, actually, there was no really defined pathway. I was still in what you would say the planned out role for every woman, any person studying medicine. You're going to do
Mhm.
this, then go in your residency, and that's pretty much the path that you carve out for yourself. But this was a space I joined in between that. And I loved what I did. So, my first startup I joined because they needed a doctor to answer questions for parents who had new babies. So that was my job because I was a doctor who was able to answer the questions. So when I started doing that, I loved what I did. I loved talking to the parents. I loved answering the questions. It was great being there because I realized that I was filling a gap like that had not been filled before. There were so many people who had questions, but no one could answer them. So I felt that, especially in India, there's a lot of between the doctors and the patient. There's so much of like white noise. Many people don't even
Mhm.
go to their doctors. So to be able to be in that space, I think that and know that you're providing value, I think that's what was the turning point for me essentially that okay, I want to do this.
Okay, that's really incredible. Like being able to be that middleman between like the doctors and the patient and filling that white noise, because I believe that women and especially parents, first time parents, may have like a lot of questions to ask. So
Right.
it's awesome that you're able to fill that gap. So something I found interesting about your profile is that you describe yourself as an unconventional doctor. So what does that mean?
So that started actually when I started doing what I was doing. I just stuck because I realized it's a conversation starter in most cases.
Yeah.
So when I started working in this space, and I think even today for a lot of doctors in India working in the space, it's not what people assume doctors to be. So like you still get some hindrances or looked down upon because you're not doing what a conventional doctor would do, wear a white coat, be in the hospital. But on this side of the fence, we are still like bridging the gap, answering questions, and doing much needed work that is not possible without like having clinical experience. So I think the unconventional doctor for me came from that because I'm doing something that people outside do not assume a doctor would do. You would assume they would continue working in a hospital and those things. But that's why I put this as a title because in India, most people assume you look a certain way if you're a doctor or assume you're doing a certain thing. But every room I went into, they were surprised that, okay, you are Dr. Michelle Frank because on a certain platform, you look a certain way, they assume are a certain thing, but when they see you in person, they, oh, this is a different look. So that is the main reason why I wrote that. But at the end of the day, anyone who's earned the degree, work with people, they are doctors. So that doesn't change.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool. Okay. So you've worked with a lot of community platforms, which is really, really interesting and also very needed for a doctor to be able to interact regularly with patients, especially maybe
Right.
outside of the hospital. So what have you learned about like women's needs from this community so far?
So women's needs are diverse, I would say. They are not what we assume they are, because a lot of women, we would say that, okay, if you have endometriosis, you look or feel a certain way. Or if you have even postpartum depression, people assume it looks and feels a certain way. A woman could look extremely happy and still suffer from postpartum depression. So I think these communities may be providing that layer of anonymity that you can't see or look at the person directly. I think that is the main turning point of digital health communities, because that has allowed women to be themselves authentically, especially if it's like a safe space and they know they can like talk openly. They can at least express. And over here, out here in India, and I think a lot of East Asian, even African countries, it's very common that women are unable to express because of where they stay, like their homes. They cannot talk about how they feel, or even in their careers, because it's tough for women to get sustainable careers even today. So to be able to express a side that's innately woman, like how you're feeling or what you're experiencing in your body, is highly taboo or in both spaces. So like communities such as these, or the ones I've worked with, I realized they drop the curtain of that and allow women to like talk openly, be themselves, express themselves, and get help. I think that's the end goal of these communities. They get help because then their feelings and how they experience their symptoms are validated. And then they realize that they need the help. So I think that's been the most turning or pivotal moments in each of these communities.
That makes sense. And that's like very incredible work because women, there are so many things that women don't know. And it's important that we are able to share and then realize, like, okay, I'm not the only one. And this is a very, like, that keeps coming up for me is understanding that period pain is not normal. And I used to think that it was because that's what I was told. So having
Right.
conversations like in these communities is very important. Okay.
I agree.
Mm. So let's talk a bit about dismantling stigma, especially coming from Asia, because like you said, it's also quite similar to the African perspective as well. So how do you think stigma typically shows up today for women?
I think stigma is mostly in assumptions. That is, I would put at the top of the list, because they're in every phase. Like, let me just give you an example. Like, if a woman goes to a doctor, explains her symptoms. Like you just said, I have period pains. I assumed it. Like, I thought it's normal. You go to a doctor, they are like, oh, every woman goes to period pain. So it's like that assumption is the first thing in stigma attached to women's health, assuming that you know what they're going through. And that's the same with even innovation, I would say. Anyone innovating, even if you're one person going through it, you can't assume all the women are going through the same thing. While it
Yeah,
adds a layer of authenticity that, okay, I've been through this, so I know, but you don't know. So talking to women would be the most essential thing, which I think doesn't happen as much. And talking with an important part of listening to what the woman says, not dismissing what she has, and not assuming. I think I would reiterate the fact, not assuming that she has something that you believe she has, or she has the classic symptoms in your medical books or something like that. Because conditions like endometriosis, even PCOS, can go up to 2, 3 years without being diagnosed, even though we know so much about it. Things, so assuming, I think, would be at the top of my list for stigma. I think once we stop doing that, the taboos and stigma like fade away, because you're actually prioritizing what the person has and trying to work.
that makes sense. And what you said about not overgeneralizing symptom, right? It also reminds me of the conversation that I had with Alicia from Psychopositivity, and we were discussing how energy levels switch for different women from ovulation to luteal phase to period to the
Exactly.
period phase, and then one thing that she reminded me of is that understanding that this won't be the same for every woman. Like while we say that like during ovulation the woman is supposed to be like high energy and everything, for some women it's not going to be like that. So
It's
it's
not.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what you said is just reminded me of that, and it reminds me that it's very important to like understand that healthcare is not one size fits all, and every woman's body is different.
Right.
Okay. So for the next question is going to be, what role do you think trust plays in creating digital spaces for women's health? Because it's been a common term that has come across a lot of speakers so far on the podcast, like building trust within the community that you're building for. So what's your take on this?
So for me, trust, and I would add safety here, comes at the helm of any community, any innovation, any research, data, everything. So if a woman doesn't trust the space she's in, she's not going to be in it. Either she's going to physically be reflexive of not wanting to be there, or she will show you signs that she's not interested or drop away. If it's a community, they'll drop away. Because I think that's the defense mechanism for any woman. Like if she doesn't trust something or she doesn't feel safe somewhere, she's not going to be there. So I think that has to be at the forefront of any form of innovation, any form of data collection, any form of in what you say, medical management. Even if a woman doesn't trust you on what you're going to do for her, or you've not asked sufficient amount of questions, she's never going to trust what you give her. She's always going to second guess whether this person has put my interests in the forefront before they have actually prescribed me any medication. So I think trust is the most important. It should be woven into the DNA of any care for women. And without that, women are just not going to themselves trust the system if it's not within.
That makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. From your experience so far, you've been talking with so many women over the years. So has there been a particular conversation you've had that has stayed with you?
Well, that's actually a great question. I've had a bunch of stories that have stayed with me. One that stands out in particular, I wouldn't say one, there are plenty that stands out, but this is a one that I talk about quite often. So there was this woman in my first startup at Baby Gogo where she actually talked to me. I helped her with her first child, and then she was planning to have another child. And it was a very for me at the time, it felt like a very, okay, I'm helping you out. This is what a doctor would do kind of conversation. But a couple of years down the line, and she had a second baby, and I had even left that startup and I was working in a new place. She found me out on social media. I don't even know how she managed that, but she actually found me out. And she said, thank you. She's like, no one was listening to me and no one actually helped me through this. And I didn't know who to talk to. And you're the first person who actually listened, talked to me, replied to all my questions. And I now have my second baby. So I was like really happy for her. So when these small gestures make you realize that something you feel insignificant that you are doing is actually making a big deal on the other side. And that was something I didn't realize until much later when I got more of these messages. Because for me, I was doing what was right by me as a doctor, and she needed help. And this is for every woman I ever spoke to. But I only realized it when I got these responses that, okay, it was a big deal for these people, and they have actually gone through phases in their life where many of them have not even received responses. So I think this small little story accumulates a lot of what healthcare providers feel should be doing. Like we are making a big deal of difference on the other side. So never discount or dismiss any questions that come towards you because you never know how important it is on the other side.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really insightful and really sweet that she found you somehow to reach out to
Yeah,
you. And
I was pretty surprised too.
all right, that's really cool. Okay, so you do a lot of work around women's health advocacy and I think in general advocacy as a whole. So how
Right.
does writing and storytelling fit into your vision for this?
So I think that has been pivotal for me because, as I just mentioned, what I mentioned was a small snippet of a long story, right? So to be able to write and talk about that, especially over the last couple of years, because now I'm like accumulating experience, so I actually know what it's like to be in the field. So to be able to talk about it and share my experience and know that it's helping someone on the other side is like a big deal, especially in women's health, because women relate to these stories. Like women, if you they feel seen and heard, like, okay, someone else has gone through this, or there's someone helping out in this, or they can also reach out to you, okay, you've helped this person, how can I with the same condition be helped? So I think storytelling is so important because it helps to women to mirror themselves onto other stories. It helps to know for them to know they're not alone, because that is such a crucial thread even at the beginning of when I started working, and it's still true today, and I think 10 years from now it'll still be true, that women need spaces and faces to like in their story too, so that they also can have a voice to speak about what they're speaking. So storytelling and writing in general has been very important because I think sharing experience is the best way to get more stories out there and to get women to get help for themselves, because at the end of the day that's why we are building, right? We want women to help themselves. So if we don't share the stories, they're not going to really get help for themselves.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. So you've had a lot of experience with the digital health and innovation space. So what do you think is one thing or a couple of things that most health apps are still getting wrong about women's health?
Okay, so this I think ties into something we talked about a little earlier, where it's the assumption bit. I think that's still something that is not being addressed 100% because a lot of uh, innovators are not fully getting the whole picture and maybe building like I believe this is what I need to build, so I'll build this. But you're not really talking to the women and finding out what they want and is this what they need. 'Cause essentially today it's becoming like 100 apps or 100 platforms or 100 communities for everything. And I don't think all women want that. They want something that's more holistic, something that fulfills all their needs, something that's more culturally tailored to them, and not
Mhm.
something that's just built because we thought you needed it kind of thing. So I think assuming and not talking to the women would be the first wrong steps you take if you're going to build. Like if you're not talking to women, not getting some data, not getting doing some research before you start building, your product is not going to be sustainable in the long term because you're missing the most important highlight of why you're building. Because not all whatever you build is not going to suit every single person, right? And every
Yeah.
single one. So you really need to consider who you're building for. And you're not going to be able to build also for everybody. That also you need it to sink in. So whoever you're building for, you need to make sure you're building for that whole group and not just for one individual or two individuals.
Okay, that gave me a lot to think about because I'm building out Asale and it's been a lot to take in so many all the feedback and understanding when to say, okay, this is what it is and this is the relevant feedback and we can't be everything to everybody. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's giving me a lot to think about. Okay, so when it comes to building digital health applications, there's a lot to factor in, like personalization and cultural relevance, and also being able to build a digital tool that also factors in empathy. So, how do you
Right.
think these like principles could show up in femtech?
So I think, as we just discussed, it's not easy to build for everyone. It would be utopian to consider, okay, we build one thing and it helps every single woman in the world, but that's not even possible. Like somewhere in India or even Africa, we have so many different languages, so many. So how are we going to build something that every woman? You cannot expect a woman in rural India to understand an English app. So how are we
Mhm.
catering to her? So you really need to define what you want to serve. Like if it's the woman in India that you want to serve, okay, let build features in which you are now with AI, it's easier to like plug in these changes and make those changes,
Yeah.
make all women inclusive in your country. Because I think those small things show empathy. As you asked about, these small things show empathy because empathy is at the central focus of care for women. If you don't have that, it's not there in what you build, it shows very easily, and women tend to turn away from it and they tend to not use it. I think that's where I learned in the initial conversations I used to have with women, because if I didn't personalize my conversations or it sounded too robotic or you didn't follow up with that, that's when women fell off and they don't trust the system, right? It's because I showed up every day, I answered every question, I followed up with them. Even to say something, oh, that's great, I'm glad to hear this, and those kind of things, that shows empathy, right? That shows that you care about what they're going through. So the same thing I noticed women realize within apps or digital features that they use. If they don't find something that responds back to them, or they don't find something that's a little tailored towards them, they don't expect the world, something that's a little tailored towards them, they're not going to stay there because they realize that it's very robotic and something very not personalized to what they are experiencing.
This conversation is giving me a lot to think about. Okay. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about AI because why not? So
Right.
you already like mentioned how AI can be used, like people can integrate AI into their products to say to adapt it to for multiple languages, for example. So are there any other applications of AI that you're excited about? And what do you think femtech founders should be looking out for when integrating AI systems into their products? Because we already know that AI can do weird things.
Yeah. So I think the weird things are the more important things because we already know about the fascinating things that AI can do, and it's helping to founders to integrate more seamlessly into their systems and build more elaborate plans with like the smallest amount of tech. But I think as we in the middle of our conversation somewhere we talked about trust and safety, that's the one thing that's still a huge question for AI. because
Mhm.
when it comes to health, we need to consider the confidentiality, we need to consider privacy, we need to consider the unique aspects of health that is still not integrated into AI. AI is, of course, helping technological advance, but there are many factors in the healthcare system that is not integrated into AI. So these are the parts I think as humans we need to consider when we are using AI in our systems. That is this going to leak information that the woman is giving us? Is this going
Mhm.
to breach her privacy? Is this crossing ethical boundaries? I think those are the more important questions. Founders, innovators, healthcare professionals, or whatever it is innovating in the space, we need to consider these more because this is what the technology is not able to do. We already know what the technology can do. So I think that's what you need to sit and think about more because at the end of the day, we don't want something that's so exciting to just fall off the grid just because of these small technicalities. So I think
Mhm.
at the beginning phases, it's important to consider where there could be the pitfalls and try to fix that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that AI is something. I don't know if you saw there was a recent article from the New York Times about a girl that was talking to AI and then she took her life afterwards.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I probably came across that. Oh, it's appalling.
How
Exactly.
mm,
So those are the things that are not being considered, I think, and are overlooked. We are looking at all the fascinating aspects.
mm,
We are not looking at where this could actually be more of a negative than a positive. So I think that's something that needs to be thought out thoroughly way before you integrate AI into your system.
yeah. And that reminds me of the conversation I had with I think her name is Ananya. She's building a platform
Heal
for
cycle.
yeah, Hill Cycle, I think. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I liked that the way she presented it was that she said that she's building it for like the AI on the platform that they made sure that you don't like over see it as a person. Like they made sure that it's like an it than he or her that you're talking to. And I find that was very interesting from that perspective because I think it's very easy for people to like, especially now with like people talking to ChatGPT like it's a friend or a therapist. And
Exactly.
I love it that founders are also putting in perspective that listen, this is a thing. It's not a person, it cannot replace an individual. So you need to watch out for that. So that's
Watch now.
yeah. Okay. So let's talk a bit more about your work during the pandemic. So you co-hosted My Health Chat, so which was very, I think that was like one of a very awesome thing to do during the pandemic because there are so many questions everywhere about COVID and everything else. So
Right.
what did you learn from that whole experience?
So that was a very interesting time, I'd say, for all of us. That's how I think podcast gained its popularity. Also, it was during the pandemic. Everyone was online or rather forced to be online. It was the first time I was actually attending panels and conferences online. It was always otherwise we would go into physical conferences or search for the local ones or attended panels in our same city. So it was the first time I actually sat on panels that were international and not only in India. So that I think this My Health Chat sprung from that, where Suchi reached out to me on Twitter. I was active on Twitter also at that time. Like social media, honestly, is not like the LinkedIn is the most I do right now. So
Yeah.
she reached out to me on Twitter and she said, "Oh, I've noticed a lot of women are asking questions about their periods. It's so irregular and they're very confused on what to do." And that was the same thing I was experiencing on my side. But for me, it was more of because I was already working on a platform, for me, it was more a professional thing where I would answer the questions, calm the women down. And since a lot of women were going through this, I was hosting sessions. So it was quite relatable for me to talk about this. So I think from that short, brief discussion is where My Health Chat grew. She's like, why don't we just have a Twitter chat since I had been doing that, hosting multiple different types of Twitter chats. So she just asked me, why don't we start this and have different conversations every week? We were surprised. There were like 15, 20 women would show up every week from different countries of the world to talk. And even men, not just women, even men would show up and we would just like once a week we would connect, decide the topic, decide the questions, and we ran it for more than a year, I think. Just talking about a topic relating to women's health. Obviously, after the first 6 months, it was just generally about women's health because we realized like so many people want to talk about this. Why not continue doing this? And it was fun. I had a lot of fun. And I realized that this social media interaction and digital circles, as you mentioned, is such an important thing for women because even though they are themselves, they get to express parts of themselves they probably don't do. Like who goes and talks about their health every day? Not everyone does. Or who gives inputs about something they have seen related to a certain health condition. We don't do that on a regular basis. So having something like a My Health chat where even men could join in, talk about people in their lives, going through the same thing. It's so I wouldn't, it's insightful, yes, but it was fun. It was fun to have something like that where a community just comes in, enjoys the chat, reaches to you afterwards. Oh, I really enjoyed this chat. Suggest topics. We used to have guests also sometimes. So I think that was really fun. And I think it set the bridge to a lot of what we do now, like hosting chats like that. It's like talking podcasts, doing interactive sessions, being on different kinds of panels. Even gave you the confidence to do it more and absolutely enjoyed it.
That's so cool. And I like it when like I have these conversations with women and they're like, oh yeah, men are also involved in the conversation. And I'm like, yay, things are changing.
Yeah,
It's really
indeed.
interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really interesting when men joining on the conversation and even seeing like male founders in the femtech space as well, because they may be men, but at least they bring a different perspective to this space. So that's also very important, I think. So this is good. I like hearing things like this. Okay. So you've already touched on this a bit from the previous questions. So from your perspective so far with having this podcast to having these conversations, building in digital health, what role do you see community playing a role in women's health? Like you've already mentioned this, but what are your thoughts?
So while the pandemic allowed us to shift everything to a more online space, I think now people want to revert back to a more physical spaces. So I
Mm,
think community has to be a hybrid of the two. It cannot be only an online space and it cannot only be a physical space. So as innovators, either if you're building community-led platforms or building innovating through community, you have to consider something or more of a physical element toward your community that is not just online. It could be
mm,
something as simple as, say, you're building a wellness platform and you tell the woman, okay, go and do some yoga every day, or go and journal, or go and read a book or something like that. Maybe you could suggest joining a club, go for a yoga session with your local community, or go and join a book club or something like that. So that adds a physical aspect to community that probably you cannot provide through, say, you're building here and you want it for everyone around the world. If it's feasible, it would be great if you provide community physically for whichever women are a part of your community locally. Like if you're building for Indian community and you are in the city, and if it's possible, even if it's 10, 15 women that show up, I've realized it plays a huge role because we used to do this at Shiro's where we had local community meets and for different cities in India. So a few members from our team would go to these different cities and we'd have like many, many women come because so many women from all over India were on our platform and they really wanted to just interact with the team, spend some time with women they were talking to online in the community. And even if it's one member they are familiar with, it makes a big deal. So I think community today is hybrid of physical and online community. Like you cannot expect traction only from making online attempts. It has to be some kind of hybrid, either by through channel through behavior, maybe like as I mentioned, the yoga joiner group or something, or channel through efforts from your side to like build in your local community. If you're traveling to a new space and you're building a community and you know a lot of women use your platform there, go and meet them and go and talk to them, ask them for insights, ask them for feedback. I know a lot of women appreciate this because I've actually seen it happen that when you interact with them physically or give them an opportunity to like meet other members as a part of the community, they trust the community more. They bring more people, they refer more people. Okay, that's great. The founder spoke to us and all that kind of stuff. So I think that authenticity today is found only through a hybrid version of a community.
okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, this is a completely different perspective because I think I've been hanging out a lot in a lot of online communities and I'm forgetting how integral physical meetups can be. So this makes sense. This makes sense, especially like, considering what you said. Like it's very nice to meet somebody that you've been speaking to online and then you meet them in person. It just changed the entire vibe of the relationship. So
Right.
this is important. Okay. And also the part where you talked about like having including like journal club or book club, like this is like I think when we're talking about women's health, we are so focused on the I don't know how to describe it, the medical part of it. I'm forgetting like there are
Problem we
other,
are problem
yeah,
solving. You're trying to solve the
yeah,
problem when you're forgetting the person as a whole. That's
yeah.
pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like at the end of the day, symptoms sometimes are formed because of the person's habits. Like if they're constantly stressed or they are not taking enough rest, it's important to like include all these other aspects of health and then help them understand that it's not just about treating things when they come up, it's also being able to play your part in preventing those things happening in the first place.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Right.
awesome. So, from your experience so far, what do you think that is a common thing or a common theme from the people you've spoken with that women don't know, but you wish they knew earlier?
Relating to their health.
You're into health. Because part of the reason why I started the podcast was because I realized there were so many things I didn't know as a woman. And I wish I knew these things earlier and maybe even like told my friends because like, for example, the painful period thing I've been saying multiple times. It's been a constant thing that it's normal, but it's not. So I love asking, especially doctors like you who work with women to understand what's something that a common theme that you've seen that women think is normal but isn't, and more women should be aware of this.
I think anything they feel is not normal should be classified as not normal because I think a woman's intuition goes way beyond just only judging people. I think it also goes inwards to judging yourself because a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
times we already know that this is not right. Like, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling off, or I'm not feeling well, or oh, my period should have been here by now. Oh my God, I'm not pregnant, but I have not got my period. So you already know that. You're already sitting in stress of knowing all the facts. You just want the answers to the facts. So I think having that knowing and trusting that instinct that, okay, something is wrong is the most important thing because I would say 90% of the time, women are right about their intuition. 90% of the time, what they feel is not right is actually not right and they need to go and get it checked. So I think honing in on those first moments where you felt something was wrong, because we usually go at the 10th moment we realize something is wrong, not at the first moment. So honing in on the 1, 2 moments, okay, this is doesn't feel good. Oh, this doesn't feel right. Oh, this bleeding should not happen. I'm feeling tingling and whatever it is, whatever your symptoms might be. So at those 1, 2 initial moments when you get treated is usually the best time to like go. Like learn to listen and be kind to yourself. I think that's the most important key aspects for me because I think a lot of the time we put our health, and I wouldn't say this for everyone, I would include myself in that list. We put our health at a backbencher, and as a woman we've been trained to do that. Oh, it's not that important. Your period is delayed,
Yeah.
it'll come within 1, 2 days. Oh, you feel pain while you're peeing, that's completely normal, go tomorrow. So like be thinking about all these things and having that hurt that we train ourselves. Okay, no, it'll go tomorrow, it'll come in 10 days, or it will whatever. We give ourselves that timeline also that okay, we'll wait for this long and then go. But ideally that should not be the case. Whenever you feel it first, just go and get it checked. Today we even have amazing doctors who make know that they have to make women feel safe. Yes, we have not yet got the whole system is not in place, but there are amazing doctors that make women feel safe, validate their what they feel. So like go and find the doctor that makes you feel safe. Get treated for whatever you're experiencing. A small, big, don't like neglect it whenever you start feeling it the first time.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So I think it's all about listening to your body and understanding that your pain is valid and doing regular
Right,
checks and everything. Okay. Thank you so much. So let's talk a bit like beyond apps and tech from
right.
in advocacy. Like, is there any movement that's excited that makes you feel excited right now? Because personally, for me, it's all the work happening in endometriosis and fixing it.
Yeah, for me, this is actually the most exciting thing. Meeting new founders like yourself, meeting new women in the space. And I think this is like a point in my career where I can actually do this more, talk to different founders, lend some experience. I've been doing this for such a long time and being able to give back. And because I've understood some parts of how the system works, of course, we have a lot of new things happening right now. And I am a part of some great projects where I'm helping to build from zero up. But more than anything, this is, I think, the most fun part of the advocacy journey that I'm enjoying right now, where I just get to speak to a lot of great founders, or not only founders, but people working in the women's health space and what they have built over time, what they're planning to build new. There's so many conditions that were not talked about before that we are
Mm-hmm.
able to talk about today, and we are able to make space for it today, because I think a lot of women are accepting that it's not just period related or fertility related. It's more than that. Like it's more like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, heart conditions, and all of that through a woman's health lens is being examined. And I think we are allowing for more specialties and more innovation to take place to encompass the whole woman and not just like the reproductive system or fertility. And I think being able to talk about that today with different people building in the space, connecting with them and networking, I think that's one of the exciting parts of what I'm doing currently, I think, right now in this journey.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. Okay. So we're headed towards the end of the podcast. So for your next step, what's exciting? What's a, okay, sorry, I'm too excited to ask the question. So what's next for you in your work? Are there any like projects or directions that you're especially excited about?
So right now I'm going to be shifting locations. I'm going to be moving to Germany in a couple of months. So I'm excited about that, meeting new people there and learning the culture, the language, which is quite difficult, and also like getting new opportunities over there. I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. I am working on a couple of projects right now that are quite interesting on period wellness space, but I'm more excited to explore like new opportunities that lie in a new space, new country, and maybe getting to meet more people like all over Europe, because there are some great projects taking place over there as well. So I'm able to be a part of it and yeah, meet just generally meet new people in this space, because now we are innovating for so many more things than just period wellness. We are building for
Yeah.
menopause, we are building for fertility, perimenopause, mental health, postpartum depression, postpartum health. Like it's so many different things that are being built for. And I'd love to meet people in this space and learn more about their experience in the journey and probably help out wherever I can.
That's incredible news and can't wait to see it. All right. Okay. So I have two more questions for you. So is it three more questions? Okay, three more questions. So for someone who is listening to this podcast and they want to build something in women's health or they feel unseen in the system, I think I can make this four more questions. Sorry. So they feel unseen by the system. What's one thing that you want to tell them?
So, this is a great question because I think at some point I was also there. The one thing you can do is to reach out for help. Because I think the whole point of feeling unseen and feeling alone is the fact that you're alone. You're right now not build your circle and your group that can actually you can lean on. So I think the most important thing is reaching out to someone. It may take a while to get traction. This even I know, but I would say 75 to 80% of the time, the people you reach out to are going to reach back out. So if you feel unseen, you feel it's difficult, or you feel you're stuck or unable to get, just go out there, talk to some people building in the space. It can be nerve wracking, it can be anxiety driven. I completely understand all those emotions, but most of the time there are really nice people out there really willing to help you, really want to help you. Like they probably are working in the same space, you all can collaborate and build something together. So I think taking that first step to reaching out and actually finding the right people for you is the most important thing, you know. I think that's one of the main things to do, because it's a tough world, especially if you're trying to build alone. But if you reach out, you're definitely going to find some helping hands along the way, even if it's for a brief moment. Some connections last longer. So you never know
Mm.
what's out there. And today, with the internet and a global connection, you can find someone anywhere in the world. So just go ahead and like send that message or send the hi or hello to anyone you think who could help you out.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. And I added another question because it just popped in my head. Sorry. So there's been this challenge where women say they go to a doctor and the doctor isn't listening to them. I think we talked about this already earlier. So how can women approach these doctors more prepared? Like it's not just I'm telling you how I'm feeling. I have data to back it, something like this.
Tracking your symptoms, I think that is the best way to do that. Sometimes it can be overwhelming because there are tons of apps out there. There are so many ways you can do that. If you find that overwhelming, just write it down. Take a book, write down how you're feeling, make notes in your phone, and just write down how you're feeling. Like, okay, this is how I felt on day one. This is how I felt on day two. This my discharge was this on this day and my discharge was this on another day. So I think that's the most simplest way you can document how you're feeling and be prepared when you go into your doctor's appointment. A couple of other things you can do while at the doctor's appointment is probably to ask your doctor to summarize what you've discussed, or you can summarize what you've discussed so that you know you're both on the same page and that you have pretty much understood what your doctor has told you. If you're unable to, like, sometimes if you say I have pain, and it's easy for your doctor to overlook it, like, oh, but if you describe it as, oh, I was unable to sit upright because of this pain and I had to lie down all day, so that provides more context to the kind of pain you're feeling, right? So I think being as descriptive as possible on what you're feeling also makes your healthcare provider take more attention towards it. Also write down all the medicines you take, write down anything their body has done that you have felt unusual, and maybe like a recent doctor's visit. What was it like? When was the last time you did tests? You can ask questions. Oh, I didn't get my pap smear. Or do I need a mammogram? You might be in your 20s. You can still ask that question. You shouldn't be like, oh, I'm not old enough to get a mammogram. But what if you have a history of breast cancer in your family? So you might need it earlier than the rest of the people, right? So you need to consider all of these factors. No question is stupid. And if any doctor makes you feel stupid, go to another one where you're not felt stupid. So I think that's the best way to be prepared and to mentally prepare yourself for how you deserve healthcare. Like, the doctor doesn't define that. You define how you want to be treated.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right.
Oh,
All right. So 2 more questions now. So what would 15-year-old you?
I would actually say cut yourself some slack. I mean, as women, we are already riddled with so many things we have to look forward to and have to achieve, because for us, the bar is just different from what the society puts it. And we neglect ourselves so many times because you are just focused on your career track. Right now, most of us are focused on our career track. There was a different time when women were like, we have to be the great mothers and caretakers and all those kinds. So every generation, the woman had to be good at something. So I think I would just tell myself to cut myself some slack and enjoy life a little bit, because I'll be 15 only once and I'm never going to go back. And I know that now, but I'm going to be 15 only once, and like, enjoy every year of your life, because that's the last time you're going to be living it. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. You're already doing great work. Give it your best. I'm never going to say not give it your best, but also take time to enjoy your life, be happy, smile from inside, and do things that you love, not only things that everyone thinks you should be doing.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was really sweet. Okay. So for people who want to connect with you, where is the best place that they can find you and your content?
I think LinkedIn right now is the best place because I'm quite active here, and you can probably drop my profile down in the comments.
Yeah.
And I am present. I mean, I do reply to messages if anyone messages me on Instagram. It's at Doc M Frank, but I'm most active on LinkedIn, so it's the best place to like connect with me and reach out to me and even message me. Always open.
Okay. Thank you so much. I will include them in the show notes and in the description of the podcast episode. Thank you so much.
Oh.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful episode. And thank you so much for joining me on it. I really
It was
appreciate
my
you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was fun talking to you. I hope we can collaborate in the future as well. And I love to see your journey. I'm like really excited when you messaged me, and I was like, oh wow, she's building something really great for like a different demographic of women. And it's really like, I'm looking forward to your journey. And as I said, like, I hope we can collaborate sometime soon.
I really hope so. And it's also exciting to see like more women in Africa building solutions for us. So it's really cool. And I love like when I interview women from Asia and I see like there's this similarity within our journeys, even though we're like different. So I'm really happy we had this conversation.
Me too. Me too.
Hi again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Blush and Bloom. I'm so glad you joined me for this conversation. If you found it helpful, please share this episode with a friend or someone who might need it. Let's keep talking about women's health and working towards better outcomes for all of us. You can find more episodes and resources at www.asale.tech and check out our app at www.asale.health. And you can follow us for more updates on Instagram at asale.tech. Until next time, I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and bye-bye.